But let's get right into it. Today I'm joined by the host of Locked On Dodgers. I'm a fellow Locked On podcast host of the Locked On Rams, so part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jeff Snyder, voted one of the best Dodgers ball knowers in the game, the top 5 by me. He's joining us today, and he's en route, Utah to LA, making his opening day appearance like he typically does. Jeff, joining us from the road. Jeff, how you doing, my man? And how many opening days in a row is this for you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. And I'm trying to think. I don't know for sure. I know I was there last year. I had season tickets for a decade, and so I was there pretty much I think I missed, obviously there was no season in 2020. So of the 9 seasons that I had season tickets that they played games, I think I missed 1 or 2 home openers for different reasons. I know in 2014, because they started the season in Australia, and the home opener wasn't till like 10 games into the season, and I used to try and time it around my kids' spring break. But I'd say in the last, this is 13 years now, this will be my 10th probably.
10th. I mean, your favorite opening day moment has to be Kershaw home run, right? George Contos, Giants. That has to be number 1, right?
Very first game as a season ticket holder was that game. It was an amazing game. Nothing going to the bottom of the 8th inning. Kershaw hits a home run to break the scoreless tie. Dodgers end up winning 4-0. It's definitely up there. There was another fun game a couple years later, maybe 2016, when the Dodgers pounded the Padres, hit like 6 or 8 home runs. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, there's been a lot of fun. Even last year was fun. The Dodgers beating the Cardinals after Miles Michaelis had read his mouth a little bit, and the Dodgers said, "Hey, don't forget you're Miles Michaelis." So there's all sorts of fun memories at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, that'll always be it for me, though. I mean, he hits his first and only home run. He became just the second pitcher since Bob Lemon to toss his shutout and hit a home run on opening day. That will live on forever. And you probably think we're going to start with Mookie Betts' illness. You probably think we're going to start with Shohei Ohtani pitching update. Who's going to be in center field for most of the year? Bullpen, starting rotation questions. But I want to start with something that fans are talking about on the X, and that is your favorite, Mr. Clayton Edward Kershaw, being on that mural, being on that picture with Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman behind him, and people having issue with this because Clayton Kershaw did not participate in the postseason. We saw him after the Dodgers World Series win, grab that mic and say, "Dodger for life," and talk about how big that moment was for him. My take on the situation is the Dodgers have 4 MVPs. The Dodgers have 4 future Hall of Famers, and Clayton Kershaw was a big part of laying the foundation that led to acquiring Mookie Betts and signing Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani. I have absolutely no issue with it, and I think if I had to guess, I would think that most of the organization, most of the clubhouse, if not all the clubhouse organization, love the fact that he's on that mural. Would you agree with me?
Absolutely. Clayton Kershaw is the Dodgers, and as long as he is on the Dodgers, he deserves to be on every mural they make. Like you said, however you want to justify it, the 4 guys who won an MVP award, the 4 guys who already have punched their ticket to Cooperstown, whatever it is. But the fact is, Shohei Ohtani, part of the reason he wanted to play for the Dodgers is so he could be teammates with Clayton Kershaw. Tyler Glasnow wanted to be teammates with Clayton Kershaw. Blake Snell wanted to be teammates with Clayton Kershaw. All these guys, like Clayton Kershaw, is a draw, and I love bandwagon fans. I think it's important. That's how you grow your fan base, and absolutely the Dodgers have gained more fans over the last decade as they've won, and I'm sure there are some new fans last year, but just because Clayton Kershaw didn't contribute last year doesn't mean you need to forget what he's done over the last 15 years or more and what he means to this Dodgers team. Put him on every mural. Put a mural in my bedroom wall with Clayton Kershaw. Yeah. Wherever he wants to be, that's where he needs to be.
Absolutely. I mean, I listened to the quote from Yamamoto when we were in Japan, and Yamamoto straight up said that he admires him very much, and just being in the same space as him, he feels like he becomes better at baseball. So it's tough to even quantify the intangibles and really assess the impact he has on this team because it is felt throughout the organization. I'm with you. I have no doubt about it. You got to celebrate your legends. And I think this season for Clayton Kershaw, we want to see those 32 strikeouts. We want to see him stay healthy. And I think there is going to be a little bit of a bounce back for him this season because, look, I love the fact that it wasn't his arm, right? He said that the arm was feeling really, really good, and he didn't want to waste that surgery. He ended up having surgery on his lower body. So I think that all the Kershaw doubters, I think that they're going to have a rude awakening this season, because I think he's going to contribute this year. I mean, what from last season do you think, hey, points to a bounce back, a possible resurgence season for Kersh?
The fact that he's Clayton Kershaw, and every year of his career that he's been healthy, he's been excellent. It's never been a question. Like last year, yes, his ERA was 4.5, but that was, a lot. In 6 games, 1 bad game can boost your ERA. You look at Clayton Kershaw's career, and his stuff has been diminished for 8 years now. We've been wringing our hands about, oh no, the fastball velocity's down, and yet still, season after season, when he's healthy, he is one of the best pitchers in baseball. And there's no reason to think that's going to change. I guess maybe at some point age catches up with everybody. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is Kershaw's last season. If he gets to 3,000 strikeouts and they win another World Series, then maybe it's a good time to ride off into the sunset. So maybe that's another reason to put him on the mural. But yeah, until Clayton Kershaw actually pitches poorly, which he hasn't, I'm not going to just assume he's going to pitch poorly.
Absolutely. I think that you're totally onto something that crossed my mind too when seeing him on that mural. Is they realize what's at stake this season is getting those 32 strikeouts, having him contribute to a World Series title, and then riding off into the sunset as the player that ties the record for most seasons with the Dodgers at 18, and then rides off in the sunset as a future first ballot Hall of Famer that's going to have a statue at Dodger Stadium. You also brought up the fact that from a ERA standpoint, yeah, you look at those numbers, you say, okay, 4.5 ERA. You look at the FIP at high 4.43 expected ERA in 7 starts, 24 strikeouts, 9 walks in 30 innings. You're like, wait a second, what is this guy going to provide? Is this guy washed? And then you dive deeper into it, and you realize that to start his year, in his first 5 starts back, he actually posted a 2.63 ERA, a 3 FIP, had 1 bad start. He gave the 5 runs in 5 innings against the Rays on August 24th. So, yes, I am...
That was probably the toe.
Exactly, and it was the toe. He was still dealing with it, and that toe was stubborn last season, right? And he tried to come back despite. So I like it. We're both on the same page. I knew what I was going to get out of you when it comes to Clayton Kershaw. You were a devout Christian. We know that you believe in the Church of Christianity. We understand that. But let's talk about the hottest story in Dodger baseball right now, Jeff, and that is this mysterious illness that Mookie Betts has at the moment. And a couple days ago, I did like what I heard from him. I mean, he said that he was miserable. He said that he had the 2 worst flights of his life. He said that he couldn't eat anything without throwing up. Now, I just got back from Japan. I did see Mookie, and he walked past me. I asked Mookie, hey, how you feeling, man? I heard you're sick and this and that. And he said, I'm not feeling great, but I'm going to be cool. I'm going to be fine. Felt like he was more optimistic, and then a couple days went by, did not get better, and then was scratching the lineup, and now all of a sudden he's holding down food, he's getting better, and then Dave Roberts says that if everything goes as planned, he's going to be in the lineup and potentially start on opening day. My question to you is, even if he is holding down food and he is getting better, would you have him in the lineup to start opening day?
I wouldn't, but there's a caveat to that. I am neither a doctor nor do I play one on TV, and I've never even met Mookie Betts, let alone examined him medically. And so I firmly believe that the Dodgers are much more invested in Mookie's long-term success than I am, and they are going to be extra cautious. So if Mookie's in the lineup, I have to assume it will be because the medical professionals determined that he's not at risk of hurting himself. That's really the only concern. Mookie can still be a good player without power, even if he's, not, he'll still build his strength back up. So he's a singles hitter instead of a home run hitter. He can be a good player. The only concern for me is he at risk of pulling a hammy or some sort of tissue injury because he's weakened? And, I'm not qualified to answer that question. That question will be answered by people who are qualified to answer it and who really, really care about the answer. And so that's my caveat. I wouldn't put him in the lineup, but if smarter people than me say he's good to go, then I'll be fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic point. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where the Dodgers are always going to err on the side of caution, especially with their superstars. There's a reason why we didn't see Freddie Freeman in Tokyo. There's a reason why we didn't see Mookie Betts in Tokyo. And I think considering the offseason he had, where he went to Japan and had a big impact on him, he wanted to play in that game. And he also wants to be a part of ring ceremony on Friday. He wants to open the season as the Dodgers opening day shortstop. That stuff means something to Marcus Lynn Betts. I think, too, he wants to show people, hey, this is not all talk. I did spend the entire offseason knowing I was going to be the shortstop, making those adjustments, being more of a fluid shortstop, being able to make those throws, not having the errors piled up. I think he's anxious to get going with that. I think it's a part of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a lot to prove to himself and to the fans, and I know that's part of, I mean, he's the ultimate competitor, and that's part of why he wants to be on the field, and I get that for sure. And I think the Dodgers will factor all of that in. And you have to respect that drive, that desire to be on the field, and that's why I do think they will defer to him if they determine that he's not at risk of hurting himself. Then they're going to say, yeah, I'll take a 80% Mookie Betts over 100% Miguel Rojas. We said that last night, some people got mad on Locked On Dodgers. That is 100% a statement about Mookie Betts and not about Miguel Rojas. But Mookie Betts deserves to play if he wants to play. Food. It was also, he helped them food, and he went through a full baseball workout. And that's the more important part, to see he's doing baseball stuff. How does he feel today? You know, all those things. That's going to determine whether he is going to be in the lineup. Can he be a baseball player?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think for me, when it comes to Mookie Betts, it's, are you buying into the fact that he can be an average everyday shortstop? Because if he's an average everyday shortstop, he is an elite shortstop when you combine the defense with the offense and what he can provide from both standpoints. But we're going to do some buying and selling throughout this show. Are you truly buying that from Mookie Betts? I typically have drank the Kool-Aid this offseason. Andrew Friedman told me, hey, you don't bet against Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts told me, hey, I want to go out there and win a Gold Glove. And it's kind of one of those things, hey, if you're anywhere close to a Gold Glove and you're Mookie Betts and you're a 140 WRC plus or above type of player, that is something that is additive at that position. But are you buying that? I mean, I look at, if it doesn't happen, you're one of the few teams in Major League Baseball that has a defensive Gold Glove caliber shortstop in Miguel Rojas, and then behind him you have an above average shortstop in Tommy Edman. Even behind that you have Kike Hernandez and Chris Taylor. List goes on and on. So you have the insurance if you're the Dodgers, but are you buying the idea of a wire-to-wire average adequate shortstop that also continues with the bat all season long with Mookie?
I am, and I'll tell you why. Because most of Mookie's issues at shortstop last year were the throws. Mookie looked fine. He just made some bad throws. I think, all of his errors except for one were throwing errors. And if there's one thing we know about Mookie Betts, it's that he's got a good arm, that he can throw a baseball. And so it's all about the footwork. It's a different throw from shortstop than from right field. And so being thrust into the starting job last year with 2 weeks left in spring training, that was a different. He didn't have the time to really figure out the footwork. But reading all about all the work he put in with Petey Montero this offseason, working on the footwork, working on the throws. And you and I both watched him in spring training this year. Like, he looks like a shortstop. He is playing like a shortstop. The throws are he's gonna make a throwing error here and there. But overall, I think the throws, we're going to see a vastly improved Mookie Betts at shortstop, and that alone puts him to above average defensively. And that's plenty for me. I'll take average. Like you said, with him hitting the way he is, I know a lot of people have concerns that the rigors of playing shortstop every day will affect his offense. And they point to last year how Mookie was slumping even before he got hurt. But that's also the nature of Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts has always been a streaky hitter. And if you look at his pull up his splits on Baseball Reference in 2024, his numbers by position, his best overall numbers were as a shortstop. And some of that is because of the hot start to start the season. But I always think it's funny that at the beginning of the season, people were saying, oh, Mookie's hot at the plate because he's having to focus so much on shortstop. He doesn't have time to think about hitting. He just gets in there and lets his natural ability take over. And then when he starts slumping, it's, oh, Mookie has to focus so much on shortstop that he doesn't have time to think about hitting, so he's slumping. It's like, he's just a baseball player. Hitting the baseball is hard. He's going to have slumps. But I really believe that Mookie is going to be Mookie at the plate over the course of the full season. And if he can be even average defensively, he will be elite. And I think he's going to be better than average defensively.
Yeah, that is the $1 million question, right? I mean, if you look at just the overall numbers, a minus 4 outs above average, that was 48th out of 53 shortstops, a negative 4.6 used yard, that was 49th. I mean, a lot of defensive metrics take years to really make complete sense of at that position. But I think you brought up a fantastic point in that there's going to be a lot of narrative building with Mookie Betts early on in the season. I mean, people not even tied to the health thing that we're talking about right now. Did he get fully healthy? And that's the number one thing I'm looking at is, will the offense take a hit because he has to expend so much energy on defense, the physicality of that position? Miguel Rojas was on the show. He asked him period point blank, at some point, does playing shortstop affect your offense? And he said yes, but Miguel Rojas isn't Mookie Betts at the plate, right? Mookie Betts is never Miguel Rojas at the stick with the stick, so you had to consider that as well. But last season, those power numbers went down a little bit. Weighted runs created plus went from a 166 to 141. If he's at last year's numbers with average defense, you're here for it. But let's say there's a dip where it's like he's at a 120 weighted runs created plus, or the slug is significantly down, and that's something that lasts for a month or two. That's going to be a part where you're kind of wondering, is Mookie being honest with himself about how the defense impacts the offense? But that's going to be a big question for me.
Yeah, it'll definitely be something to keep an eye on. And, as much as the Dodgers have talked about being all in on Mookie at shortstop, I think the fact that they traded Gavin Lux tells us that they are at least allowing for the possibility that Mookie has to end up at second base, because, if they were sure Mookie was going to stick at shortstop, Gavin Lux is a great option at second base. I think Gavin Lux is going to be a solid hitter, all those things. But if Mookie has to move back to second base, well, we know Gavin Lux can't play shortstop. And so I think that's why the Dodgers made that move, was because there was question marks about Mookie playing the full season at shortstop. Obviously, Tommy Edman having more defensive flexibility than Gavin Lux, all those things. I think the Gavin Lux trade was mostly about Mookie Betts, and that is kind of telling to me that while the Dodgers are optimistic and maybe even confident, they're not sure that Mookie is going to be playing shortstop in August, September, October. And that's fine too. I think he deserves a chance to try. But I haven't seen really anything other than people thinking, oh, I bet it's because he's playing shortstop that the offense is suffering. Whereas, like I said, you look at his numbers last year, I think it was mostly the broken hand, because he took a while to come back from that, and it takes a while to come back from an injury. So he's slumping a little bit before he got hurt, and then getting those numbers back up after he got hurt. But that's when he was in right field, and the numbers were still down from what they normally were. So I'm not too worried about the offensive side of things.
Yeah, I think for me, it's way more nuanced than just this leading to this and that leading to that. I mean, Mookie's 32. He's going to turn 33 this season. You don't know when players are going to fall out of their prime. You're going to see such a dip. When you're a player like Mookie Betts that has had such a high peak, even that next tier down is better than most players' peaks, right? So I think if you're the Dodgers, he's one of those few guys. He's on a short list of guys that, like you said, has earned this opportunity to say, hey, if he wants to prove to the world I can play shortstop and I can try to win an FU Gold Glove or something like that, then let's give him the opportunity, because if it works out, then it helps us in the long run, and then you can use guys at other positions. Now, pretty much the most fascinating position to me, it has to be center field. I mean, you look at the center field spot for the Dodgers, it's the one where it's, are we going defense? Are we going offense? Are we going to go with the platoon situation? Do we truly think that Andy Pages has the ability to be an everyday player. He had the second best OPS against lefties last season, a 917 against southpaws. That was only behind Teoscar Hernandez. So even in his slumps last season, he raked against southpaws. During spring training, he's had some moments. For the most part, I mean, it's hit 212, 619 OPS. Can't take too much away from spring training numbers. But just where are you at with center field?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
Tommy Edman is a Gold Glove second baseman. I like Tommy Edman at second base, but the defense in center is a concern. Center field, like shortstop, those are the two positions where, when we were growing up, you don't need too much offense from your center fielder or your shortstop. You need good defense. Well, Pages isn't going to give you good defense. He may be able to give average defense, and you can see. I mean, we had it just the other night in I can't remember which Angels game it was, but there was a fly ball that probably should have been caught. That Kevin Kiermaier definitely would have caught. Tommy Edman probably would have caught. Andy Pages played it on a bounce. And those things add up, and they're not errors, but every out that you don't make in the outfield is a hit for the other team, and a lot of times in the outfield it's an extra base hit, and so that stuff matters. Andy Pages is going to have to hit his way into being the starter, because if he's hitting like a center fielder, like a 1980s center fielder, but he's playing defense like last year's Andy Pages in center, that's not a major league caliber center fielder. So that, I think that's a big question mark. Obviously, James Outman would be a better option defensively, but James Outman, I love the guy, but he needs to figure out how to hit the baseball with the baseball bat, which is a big part of being a hitter, and that's, he went through a swing change. Maybe he is just one tweak away from figuring it out, and maybe James Outman ends up the center fielder when he figures out how to hit. But even in Outman's rookie year, when he was good, finished third in the rookie of the year voting, you look at his strikeout rate, and it was always concerning. And it was always like, can you actually sustain success with that much trouble putting the bat on the ball? And throughout the history of baseball, you look at it, and the answer to that question is usually no. And so Outman's going to have to figure out how to be a better contact hitter. And so far this spring, he's been the opposite of that. And so, yeah, I mean, Tommy Edman might end up your best option in center field, but he's definitely your best option at second base, at least right now.
Yeah, I think the path for Outman has to be he gets an opportunity through injury and then shows that he can hit. He gets hot early in that stretch, and they say, can you continue this because we trust the defense? Because you just can't have a guy that's striking out 35% of the time, that's 46% below league average offensively. If he was just more respectable as a bat, closer to league average, then you say, okay, let's lean on defense and your plus on that end versus what you can do offensively. But we've seen with this organization, if you can hit, you're going to play. If you can hit, they're going to give you opportunities. But to me, it's a little bit of a concern, if I'm being honest, as far as you look at the outfield picture. Conforto's passable in left. Teoscar's better in right than he is in left, and the metrics kind of bear that out. But really, you're looking at an average to, at best, defensive outfield to a below average defensive outfield. But if you have Tommy Edman there, you have a guy that's above average. If you have even Kike Hernandez, I think you feel better about his defense as well. And kind of something I'm thinking about is like, look, I mean, if Kike, he went 0 for 5, and then he hits a home run. He's a very streaky player. What does a full goggle season look like for Kike? Because for his career, 7% below league average in the regular season. We know he's a monster in the postseason, and you don't want to lose his versatility. That's why he's on this team, because he can play so many positions: third, short, second, all the outfield spots. Pitcher, hey, let Kike catch, right? But if things get to a point where Pages is struggling offensively, defensively, you're saying, okay, you're average at best. They don't trust James Outman. They want to keep Tommy Edman at second. Maybe you do consider Kike, and then maybe you trade for Luis Robert Jr. at the deadline, because I need a trade. I can't go a whole year without a big trade. I mean, please, Andrew Friedman, help me from that standpoint.
Yeah, well, if you're looking for somebody who strikes out less, I don't know that Luis Robert Jr. is your answer.
He does damage.
But a lot of this, one of the names we haven't mentioned is Ha-Seong Kim. How did he develop as a hitter? Because if he can figure out how to hit in the United States, well, then maybe he's at second base, and that pushes Edman back to center field. Or, they've had Kim playing some center field in spring training too. Obviously, elite athlete, could definitely has the potential to be an above-average defensive center fielder. He's a guy who could come into play. Kike Hernandez, though, specifically, I think he's going to get a lot of playing time between a lot of different positions because, like you said, he can play center field. I thought it was interesting that the first game against the Cubs in Tokyo, in the original lineup, before Freddie Freeman was scratched, Kike was in left field instead of Michael Conforto against Shota Imanaga. It made me wonder, obviously, like last year, Conforto hit lefties better than he hit righties, but for his career, he's a typical lefty. He hits righties better than he hits lefties. And was that kind of a clue to us that against a tough lefty like Shota Imanaga or, for instance, Tarek Skubal on Thursday, are we going to see Michael Conforto on the bench? Max Muncy, throughout his career, has hit lefties well. The last couple of years, not as much. And so he's another guy. Both of those guys, left field and third base, obvious spots for Kike to get starts against left-handed pitching. I think we'll see Kike against right-handed pitching too sometimes, whether it's in center field for Pajes, because Kike isn't really a big splits guy. He hits lefties and righties roughly equally well. Sorry, I got the hiccups. That Diet Coke I'm driving to keep me awake drinking to keep me awake while I drive.
ドジャースをこよなく愛する現地記者のジェフ・スナイダー氏はこう語る。ドジャースを訪れる選手たちに理由を聞けば、彼らは皆こう言うのです。カーショウと共にプレーしたいと。山本由伸やグラスノー、スネルなど世界を代表する投手たちですらカーショウを心から尊敬しているのである。その存在感は数字では測れないほど偉大である。今年カーショウは通算3000奪三振という栄光の数字まであと32個に迫っている。健康を取り戻し投げられる状態のカーショウがマウンドに上がれば、そこに待つのは常に奇跡と感動の瞬間だ。実際彼が完全復活を果たし、ドジャースを再びワールドシリーズ制覇に導く姿は誰もが待ち焦がれているシナリオなのだ。カーショウはこれまで何度も不安を覆し続けた男です。球速が落ちようと怪我があろうと、復活のたびに我々を驚かせてきました。彼がマウンドに立つ限り我々は信じるしかないのです。カーショウが再び王座へ導くその日をとスナイダー氏は熱く語る。その一方でドジャースの攻守を支えるスタームーキー、ベッツも注目の中心だ。開幕直前に謎の体調不良に襲われ出場が危ぶまれたが、驚異の回復力を見せ開幕戦出場に向け準備を整えた。球団の医療チームが問題なしと判断したからこそ、彼は再びフィールドに立ちドジャースファンの前で躍動する準備が整った。今季ベッツは遊撃手として新たな挑戦に挑む。その守備力に懐疑的な声も上がったが、スナイダー氏は自信を持って語った。ムーキーは春季キャンプで明らかに遊撃手として進化しました。彼は間違いなくドジャースを次のステージへ押し上げる存在となるでしょう。ベッツ本人も僕はゴールドグラブを得るつもりだと力強く宣言している。打撃力と守備力を兼ね備えた究極の万能選手ムーキー、ベッツ、遊撃手として成功すれば歴史的な快挙になるのは間違いないだろう。そしてドジャースの中心軸にはやはり野球の神大谷翔平が控える。その圧倒的な存在感は説明不要だ。大谷がドジャースを選んだ理由の一つもやはりカーショウという伝説の存在にあった。偉大なものが偉大なものを呼び寄せる。これはまさに野球界における運命の引力なのだ。シーズンを通じてカーショウの完全復活、ベッツの挑戦、大谷の圧倒的活躍という三大ドラマが織りなす奇跡を我々は目撃することになる。ドジャースの新たな歴史はこの3人の英雄が描く壮大な叙事詩なのだ。開幕の日、世界中が息を飲み英雄たちの物語が動き出す瞬間を待ち焦がれている。ロサンゼルスドジャース再び MLB の頂点へと歩みを進めるその姿を我々は歴史の目撃者として心に刻むのだ。球史に刻まれる壮大なドラマの幕がいよいよ上がろうとしている。